Hello and welcome back. This is season 3 now of Upfront with Jane, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Lindsay, who is the founder and chair of Tangerine, comms agency in Manchester, and also awarded MBE in 2015 for her contributions to young people in setting up the Juice Academy in 2013. Sandy, I've followed you closely over the years, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you as my guest today. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Jane. It's nice to meet you again. We've obviously met in the past, haven't we? And obviously lockdown stopped everybody getting together, but it's lovely to see you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So where to start, really? Obviously, I know a lot about your agency and how you've grown it. You've achieved lots there, but perhaps you could summarise a little bit about what you've done and how you've got to where you are.
Yeah, well, it's a good time to do it because Tangerine, which was my first business, was 20 years old last week.
Congratulations.
Bonkers. Thank you. I mean, absolutely bonkers. It feels maximum 5, probably closer to 3 years. It's absolutely strange. And we had such a great day. We kind of we did a little bit of a celebration, which was mainly Christmas, actually, because obviously we couldn't do Christmas last year. But we're going to do another party in June. And it was just brilliant getting everybody together for the first time and just patting ourselves on the back, because I don't think we do that often enough, do we? Especially us women sometimes. We're not very good at doing that.
Definitely guilty of that.
And when I started the business, apparently I said 15 people tops. Don't want to be a big agency. Well, we've just gone over the 100 people mark. I think we're about 105 people now. So that was a bit of a fail. And we've just got some amazing people and brilliant clients. So it's just great.
Fantastic. So I suppose developing talent, growing the team's always been a passion of yours then, as well as offering the services to clients?
It is. Social mobility is something really close to my heart. I grew up on a really bad council estate. I went to a really crappy school and I had brilliant parents, so I was really lucky. And what often happens in this country is your future can be very much dictated by your postcode, and I just think that's wrong. So I do spend a lot of my time professionally and personally trying to change that. So all the way through Tangerine, we always used to have job creation programs with graduates, school leavers, and so on. And the Juice Academy was probably the first official one of that. So it's an apprenticeship program. It's a separate business to Tangerine, but it's a sister business. And it just trains one apprenticeship, and we don't want to do any more than that. We don't have an ambition to grow it at all. We just want to create jobs for young people in this brilliant digital industry of ours.
Fantastic. And actually I was probably thinking it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I came to one of your in-person recruiter days, if you like. It was in Chester. So how's that changed? Are you moving back to in person?
We haven't decided, to be honest, Jane. It's gone okay. It's more admin to do them individually, obviously, than in a big boot camp, and less fun. Obviously, the boot camps, as you'll remember, were great fun. Yeah. Bit noisy, a bit shambolic, but brilliant fun. So we are trying to decide now what to do. We might probably go with some kind of middle ground, some kind of hybrid version of that. Yeah. But watch this space. I still think there are some people still a little bit nervous about being in a room full of people, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because now we've taken on our first apprentice through the Juice Academy. So Taylor joined us 5 months ago, and the process this time was very different. So we were sent videos. I think we weren't sure actually, because a lot of the candidates are more over Manchester way. So being in Chester, we didn't know if we'd get any interest, but we did. I think we had 8 people apply, which was absolutely fantastic. It was good, actually. It gave a different offering, because whilst last time we met in person, this time they had to have the confidence. It's a different kind of confidence to put your camera on, be able to try and think about what you're saying as well as what you look like on screen. And for us, we just had our heart set on Taylor from the start. We just thought he had a nice confidence, held the camera well, wasn't trying to tell us what digital marketing was. He was just talking about himself, just had a lovely character. So yeah, it's going really well for us.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, I mean, since lockdown, we started the Juice Academy 7 years ago now, and it was very much classroom based from the beginning, because, as you know, all of the training is delivered by our Tangerine specialists in digital marketing. So we believe that in order to teach digital marketing, you kind of need to be doing it, otherwise you're going to be out of date very quickly. So that's our USP. And so all the training used to be always downstairs in the academy in the same building as Tangerine. But obviously once lockdown came along, we just couldn't do that anymore. So we had to go immediately to remote. And it was surprising how quickly we adapted. It was almost like within a week we were okay with it, like everybody else, needs must. And so what's been great is we've been able to move outside just the Manchester sort of northwest base to, we've now got apprentices in Newcastle, in London, quite a few in London actually, Birmingham. It's something we've talked about for years and never got round to doing. And now all of a sudden it's happened as a circumstance of COVID.
No excuses really, are there? It opens up opportunities once you're forced, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Obviously you've placed lots of apprentices in different businesses. What is the one key thing that you would give as advice to help make it succeed? Or let
me throw that back at you. I mean, you've got the right mindset by the sounds of it. You talked about his character and he was a great fit. I think that the one thing I'd say to employers is, obviously expect a lot, but don't expect a fully formed person. At the end of the day, they are apprentices. It might be their first ever job. So what you're actually looking for in them is somebody who fits in your team. What with Taylor, what was it that attracted you to him?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we've been pre-warned actually to sort of manage our expectations, because when you think about try and think about yourself at that age, it's such a steep learning curve from school to the working world. So we were fortunate that when Taylor joined us, actually we were all back in the office, because I do think that remote learning is very difficult for young people to try and just pick up on the office etiquette. For him to try and start to learn from people in the team, for us, we were grateful that we were back in the office. But we really did put a lot of time into thinking what's going to be beneficial to him, going back to basics, trying to spend time with everybody in the team. He's obviously been assigned Hannah, who's his kind of main contact, because she heads up the social media team, so he's gone under her wing. But we really encouraged him to sort of keep a diary, to reflect back on, because I think also for them, they forget how much they've learned, as well as us forgetting what a journey you've actually been on. But we just had it quite clear in our minds really that for the first process it's going to be all about learning. It's a fun industry as well, so we're lucky that what we're doing is fun. Just try and have fun with it and just really absorb. But we're already seeing 5 months in that he's got his tasks, his responsibilities, and I think once we get closer to the end of that 12 months, I can quite imagine we're going to be in a place where we don't know what we'd do without him.
Well, about 93% of our apprentices get kept on at the end, because as you say, by that point they're absolutely indispensable. They've really become part of the team, and it's also a two-way thing. You very rightly have said you've assigned people to him. You've got, obviously they need a line manager, and obviously the more they can be around other people the better, but also you'll find that if you've not already, that you'll start to be learning things from him. Think about it. These young people have lived and breathed digital their whole lives. It's just absolutely their oxygen. They don't have any fear of it, and they know what works. So it's very much and they have no compunction in telling us we're talking rubbish as well when we are talking rubbish. So I love that, and I think one of the things I love about the Juice Academy more than anything else is the diversity of thinking that it brings. When you've got a young person in your team, I mean, obviously our teams are very young anyway, but somebody who's a lot younger, comes from very different backgrounds. Often we'll be brainstorming, places like Pizza Hut, and you need somebody who's been to a Pizza Hut restaurant, not at the Midland or the Ivy. You need people who have had different backgrounds to bring that diversity of thinking, a diversity of thought into a brainstorm. And I think that's one of the things that has happened accidentally for me in having apprentices in the room with us. Yeah,
and actually one thing we've noticed is it's almost become a bit of a talking point with clients as well. People are saying now, how's Taylor getting on? And obviously being in a digital marketing industry, we put him on our social media. He's definitely part of the team, but I think it's also a selling point. I think clients really like the fact that we're not just hiring for talent that's already out there. We're valuing that learning process and investing in the next generation of talent, really.
Yeah.
So I think
and it keeps you fresh. I mean, one of the things, the reason we actually started the Juice Academy was because we bought a digital agency. When we were Tangerine PR back in the day, we bought a digital agency because we could see that this was the future, and we couldn't staff it. because
Yeah.
there was there was no such thing as a qualified digital marketer back then. It was just all too new.
Yeah.
And so by doing this, we've kind of created ourselves as these specialists, and they don't give you an inch. If you're not right up to date with the latest thinking, the latest new tech that's just come out, they'll let you know. So in a way, it's also kept us at the cutting edge in terms of that thinking and that processing. And we also have this process now where when something new happens, or somebody changes an algorithm somewhere, we have to immediately retrain ourselves, and then we go back and retrain the apprentices. So it's an iterative process that, again, is about us also accidentally almost keeping up to date at the very, very cutting edge.
Well, it was interesting actually when you talk about, you mentioned earlier, it's an industry that you've got to be doing it to be relevant. And that was one of the things that Taylor said to me when we met him first time in person. He said, I said, why do you think this is for you? And he said, well, a few of my friends are going off to uni, but I just think I know this is an industry I want to be in. And I think when I think 3 years time, that's such a long time to be working in an organisation, learning hands-on, compared to being a bit more theory-based, potentially a bit less current. Is that
absolutely
questioned as well then by apprentices?
And employers and parents. It's apprenticeships at last are starting to be seen as something much more valuable. When we first started the Juice Academy, they were still seen as apprentices are people who aren't clever enough to go to university or rich enough to go to university. They're almost second class. Apprentices are plumbers or nail technicians or hairdressers. And we know it's utter nonsense. It's just a different way of learning. Not everybody is academic. I didn't go to university. I don't think like that. I'm much more hands-on, practical, common sense. And what I think works is when you've got both. You need grads and apprentices, and then the magic really happens. And it's not to say everybody should go an apprenticeship or everybody should go to uni. It's not right. The different people have different ways of learning. And when we first started, we had apprentices saying that they had teachers literally almost lock them in a room and say, you're too clever not to go to university. What are you thinking? And they, it takes a really brave 17-year-old to go against a teacher saying that. And we've had mums bursting into tears because, they've chosen that route rather than that route. And but 3 years on, they're like, wow, can you come back and talk at the school about what you've achieved in your career and how different it is? And it's not about one thing being right and one thing being wrong. You need all sorts of thinking in a room.
I think you're quite right there, actually. It's not, the balance is healthy and it's got to be your decision. And actually, you're never going to know which one was more suited for you. You just got to go with what feels right at the time, and that will be the right option. But I think it's only, even for me working in this industry, I'd say it's only been a recent shift, because I did go to uni and I would have thought by the time my daughter gets to that age, I'd like her to go to uni. But actually now totally shifted. And I think so much value in whatever avenue's right for you. But I think in our industry, the apprentice route and the learning that you have hands-on, if you've got the confidence as well and you're mature enough at that age to really almost be appreciative of what you're achieving and what an opportunity you've got, then that's all part of it, really.
And also the other thing is, when they come out of the apprenticeship, they have not only that qualification, but obviously 18 months work experience, which is absolutely the holy grail, isn't it, in our sector? We get so many applications, people wanting to get into marketing, and they haven't got the experience, and they can't get the experience because they can't get the job. And this is what the apprenticeship does. It bridges that gap between people wanting to learn and wanting work experience, because they get both. So when they come out, they're immediately valuable.
And understand what it's like to be in a workplace, because it's a shock. It's a massive shock going from uni where you think, I'm so busy, I'm so flat out, I've got these deadlines, and then you get into the real world and you're like, okay, I wasn't that busy.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely right. And it's not just the technical skills, it's having to get to work on time and turn up on time for meetings, and and working with colleagues and how best to answer a phone, and it's all that very basic stuff that we take for granted. That is all part of the learning experience of an apprenticeship. It's otherwise you get to the end of your learning and you're having to almost start all over again learning, but in a different way. So I think it has so many advantages, and You know, we've got nearly 500 people now have been through the program. And every now and then I get, not very often, I have to say, but every now and then I get a little thank you note from somebody who's landed their dream job. You know, we've recently had somebody land at TikTok in London, somebody else Vodafone in London. So they're all over the place now, our alumni, and it's just brilliant to see them flourishing.
Absolutely. And I think it's such an opportunity. And I think as an employer, I feel so responsible that this is somebody's start of the career as well, and what an opportunity to shape somebody's whole first impression of working. So we have really taken it seriously, and I think, you know, wanting to make it enjoyable. But it's been great, because they obviously come to you guys for the training. We've had that support where you check in with us to make sure we're on, because it is new for us, as it is for probably a lot of people. But I think if we can get this one right, which we feel we are, then I think absolutely it would be a thing that you would carry on with 100%. I think it's good for business. I think it's good for the industry as well, to be raising talent. And I think the more people that start taking that responsibility, rather than saying there's skill shortages, the better, really.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And also, it's something that the industry has talked about for a long time, in terms of, again, as I mentioned earlier on, that diversity. You know, if you'd have looked around Tangerine 10 years ago, it would be a sea of white, female, middle class, university educated people, and they're all brilliant. But now, and the industry has talked about it for years. We used to have, I remember with the CIPR, they used to have panels saying, how do we bring different people into the PR world? And with the apprenticeships, what's happened is that's happened accidentally, and all these different people are coming through and bringing other people through. The expression, you've got to see it to be it. You know, we've got people from all different religions, all different faiths, all different coloured faces, all different genders, obviously ages. We've got a 35-year-old brand new apprentice, and you know, and everybody, all these different people add something different to the classroom. So I can only imagine what they're doing in their workplaces.
Yeah. So obviously for us, we've got the team around, and this is what we do. Do you find it's a different learning curve when you're placing a digital apprentice into an in-house team? Does it require a bit of different support from you guys?
Not really. We always make sure we as you probably remember, we do ask lots of questions of the employer as well as the apprentice. So we want to make sure that they're going to be somewhere like you, who are going to support them and look after them. So we always want them to have a line manager. Now, that line manager doesn't necessarily need to be a digital marketing guru, but they certainly do need to have done some level of digital marketing. It's not fair on the employer or the employee if you're expecting a 17, 18-year-old apprentice to run digital marketing. We just wouldn't allow that to happen. It wouldn't be good for the employers or the apprentice. So we are quite strict where we place our apprentices. So even in-house, with the in-house roles that we have, we've placed about probably 10 apprentices now, for instance, in Manchester Airport. And they you know, they're always coming back for more, and because they see it working. What does work very well in-house actually is when, as the airport has done once or twice, is they take two at a time. Because then they really support each other, they bounce off each other, they can kind of almost do shift patterns with each other to cover the channels, and that's worked really well. But it, you know, it's certainly not vital. And we've got all sorts of types of businesses, from very small, like 3, 4, 5-man bands, right up to global enormous businesses. And you know, it doesn't always work like any other employee. You know, you get some right and you get some wrong. It does depress me sometimes, Jane, when sometimes people say, oh, we had an apprentice once and it didn't work, so we haven't done it again. That's like saying we had a member of staff once and it didn't work, so we haven't done it again. Don't blame all apprentices for the one that didn't quite work out. It's not always going to be right. Absolutely.
And I think, having been partway through the journey myself, I think I would definitely say that you've got to be in the right position, that you feel that you've got that opening, you've got a solid team there, but your expectations aren't for them to actually, instead of recruiting, should we bring an apprentice in? That very much wasn't our approach. It's got to be, well, where do we want to be long term, and where do we think we can support somebody? Because I think otherwise you are setting yourself up for disappointment, really, and it's so unfair on them, you say, to think that so much to learn, really, that you're just not going to get that commercial awareness straight away to be hands-on. Okay, I'm doing all of it now.
Yeah, and we do hear that sometimes. So that's why we do keep an eye on our apprentices wherever they are, because there is that danger that people are it's because they seem so confident and they seem so knowledgeable that they go, oh, well, we'll just let him do that on his own. And it's like, actually, you do need to keep an eye on them. At the end of the day, this is a public forum they're posting on, if you're letting them post for you, so it is a thing that needs monitoring. And as in all things, they need support as well. Not all people are as confident as they seem, or as happy as they seem sometimes. So as with any member of staff, you do need to keep a close eye on them.
So for you guys, as a team of just over 100 people, what would you say is the happy? I know, amazing, congratulations. You're mad.
I know, absolutely.
What's the happy balance of what would you say would be the right amount of apprentices to have in a business of that size before it becomes just destructive?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I've absolutely no idea. I genuinely think it would be coming down to the type of business you are, and we don't really think of ourselves as like, we need to sustain 20% of apprentices. We just think, we've got these 6 job openings, are there any that we could take from the Juice Academy? Because we've had, as you can imagine, quite a lot of Juice Academy apprentices through. We've got 2 who have been with us the whole time, 7 years since the Juice Academy started. Becca and Nathan, and they are now teaching in the academy as well, as old hands basically. And we've got quite a few who've been with us 4 or 5 years. So it isn't necessarily about what percentage should be apprentices. I think people like BAE, however, they have huge numbers of apprentices going through, and United Utilities, the bigger organisations, they build their workforce from the ground upwards, and they see that as you were earlier said, their future planning. So I know that they probably would be able to answer that question. It would probably be in double numbers, I would imagine, percentage-wise.
Yeah. No,
but they've got a whole infrastructure that is literally about bringing apprentices through and people who do nothing but manage their apprentices. Whereas most people don't have that level of infrastructure, and neither should they need them, really.
Yeah. No, interesting. So what's next then for the Juice Academy? Is it opening in more areas? What's next?
No, we don't, honestly. We don't have that ambition. We want just to keep getting it better, but that doesn't mean bigger. We have 4 cohorts a year, once a quarter. We max that out at 20 young people in the classroom so that we can make sure we focus on them and give them the attention that they deserve. And we just keep getting better at learning, and every time everybody has a lesson they give us feedback, so that gets better and better. So that's our ambition, is not to get bigger but just to keep getting better.
It's like anything, isn't it?
I think the last 19 apprentices who graduated have got distinctions.
That's brilliant.
So yes, I'm so proud of that. They work really hard. They do. You got to think they're working full time and they're studying, so it's a massive testament to the amount of effort these young people put into
and with that distinction, how's that marked? Do you have to bring anybody external on the marking side?
Oh yeah. We can't do it ourselves.
Not at that stage yet.
Well, no, we're not allowed, and we shouldn't be. Somebody else needs to mark our apprentices. So the way it works is we train them for the first 12 months. So as you know, they come to us every other week for a full day's training. Then they pass through what's called the gateway into the endpoint assessment, and that's when we hand them across to Apprentify, our training partner, and they're the ones that also come and see you every 6 weeks in the office, make sure you're happy and they're happy.
They've been brilliant.
They are. They're absolutely superb. They're so efficient and organised, and they make sure everybody's happy. So once they pass through this gateway and work with Apprentify into the endpoint assessments, that's putting their portfolio together, making sure they've done all their homework and all their paperwork, and then they graduate, and then somebody else, as I say, judges how well their endpoint assessment has gone and their portfolio is, and then they get a mark.
So have you noticed those results increase over the years then?
And we're learning all the time. I mean, we're not an apprenticeship company. Technically, we're still a marketing agency, but we're learning all the time. And Apprentify have been brilliant with that. They teach us things that they are a specialist apprenticeship company. And so it's just constantly learning. And also what things we've learned as well is not just the technical side, it's what does that young person need over and above the skills that will mean that day to day do their job. So we live in a very fast-paced world, don't we, in marketing, and so we teach them resilience, and we do talk to them a lot about their own welfare and well-being, and then even things like we have a nutritionist comes in and talks to them about what they're putting in their body and how that's going to affect their executive brain.
Oh, Taylor needs that one. He's not keen on his veg.
Oh, there you go. Well, maybe he hasn't had that lesson yet.
Yeah, I'll be checking.
Good. And we also have a bank manager comes and talks about how to manage money, you know, because it might be their first ever job for a lot of them. All the things I kind of wish I'd been taught when I was their age, but then would we have listened any more than Taylor will now? We'll see.
Well, no, I think it's just, you're just not taught, are you? I think there's so many things that you just have to figure out for yourself. I was talking about this with somebody recently, saying about how your pension for the first however many years of working feels like that's never going to be required until you get to the point where you think, maybe I should think about that now, and it's a bit too late.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the bank manager talks about all of that, and savings and mortgages and all those things, and it's just so important, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, they're not just an employee, they're a person, and they've got a life, and they need to think about those things. And some of them will, and some of them are little sponges, and they literally absorb every word that we say to them. And others, you can see that, you know, they're really interested in the creative bit but not interested in that bit, and they're really interested in that but they're not. But that's fine, you know, and that's about learning, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that. So would you say that's an area that's evolved then over the years? You focus more on them as a well-being overall rather than just what skill sets?
Yeah, it is. And also we have to do things like, we have to talk about British values and things like that are all part of what are the box ticking part of the apprenticeship that we have to show that we're doing. But also it's really important, you know, with everything that's going on in the world, that they understand about different people and different religions. And we also talk to them quite a lot about not being in an echo chamber, because as a digital marketer, you have a massive ability to influence if you want to. You know, you are a brand voice, or if for an agency like ours, you could be the voice for several brands. So you have the ability to influence the way almost the world changes. And so we talk to them about making sure you don't just follow people like you on your own social media channels. Don't necessarily engage with people you don't agree with or don't like even, but you do need to be aware of different views, so that when you're forming strategy and communication programs for your clients, you can factor all of those things in, and you're not living in your own little safe bubble. And we think that's really important. Yeah,
I think also an area that as you're getting into work as well, it's having that self-worth and value in yourself, isn't it? Because actually they probably don't realize what a value they are. And once you start to value your own time, other people value it as well, don't they? So I think by developing those areas outside of the course helps with everything. So no, fascinating, been really interesting. So what's next for you with Tangerine then? I did see something about you potentially taking a little bit of retirement. Is that still the case?
I'm trying. Yes. Not very well. I actually stepped down from 3 of my jobs last year, from 3 of my non-exec roles. And Tangerine, I don't do hardly anything day to day anymore. It's run by absolutely brilliant people now. And Juice Academy, I'm more hands-on, obviously, because it's such a small team. And then I've got a number of other non-exec roles. So I'm getting better at this retirement business, but I'm still not brilliant.
You need to say no. When people say, will you be on my podcast? You've got to say no.
I'm not very good at saying no. I need to get
I'm guilty of that as well, but look where it's got you. So no, well, I've taken enough of your time. That's been absolutely fascinating. I've been really looking forward to speaking to you. You have certainly, looking up to a female in business who's had a successful business in an area that I'm in, you've been definitely an inspiration of mine. So it's been an honour to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you, Jane, and look forward to hearing more about how Taylor gets on, or Swifty, as I think you call him.
Watch this space.
I definitely will.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you very much.